Tax evasion is a very real problem in this country. A minuscule 6% of the population actually pays taxes, and government is constantly trying to plug loopholes of tax evasion. But a new plan to stop tax evasion may have taken things a bit too far. A circular issued by the Reserve Bank of India now says that spends on credit cards abroad will also be included under a scheme called LRS. The LRS, or Liberelized Remittent Scheme, was brought in 2004 and allows Indians to send money abroad up to $250,000 per year without prior approval of the RBI. As per the latest budget, expenditure under this scheme will be taxed at source at 20%. This effectively means if you are planning a holiday abroad after the 1st of July, you have to cough up 20% more as TCS, or tax collected at source. This amount can be claimed as refund at the end of the financial year, but for people traveling abroad right now, it means a bigger budget to give as tax. Let me give you an example. If you spend 1 lakh rupees on your international credit card while abroad, your credit card company will have to charge you 20% on this. So effectively, your cost goes to 1,20,000. This additional tax you have paid can be claimed as refund if it's over and above what you're supposed to owe at the end of the year. But the question is, why penalize people to pay taxes on already taxed income just to catch a few crooks? Is it fair to burden Indians with this tax collected at source at a rate as high as 20%? And is the assumption that it's just the richy rich that travel abroad a correct one? Here's a number to think of. 1.8 crore Indians traveled abroad in the year 2022. And anecdotally, at least, it seems that number will grow in 2023, because look at how many people are traveling on domestic flights. Those numbers are increasing every month. So this is the category which will be impacted from the 1st of July. Now let's understand why this has been done. The amount of money Indians send abroad has increased by 104% since last year. The government wants to curb this and clamp down on tax evasion by the richy rich who subvert this LRS scheme through credit card spends. The government wants to track expenses that are more than stated income, and this is one way to do it. They also want an idea of who is sending money abroad and why. Now, Indians spend money abroad for a variety of reasons. Most common are for the education of students and medical treatments. Remember, both these categories will not be charged 20%. They're exempt. But they will have to pay 5% of tax collected at source if the money sent is more than 7 lakhs a year. Apart from this, people invest in real estate, businesses, investments, etc. But by bringing in tourists from India who travel abroad in the same category, travelers, tourists, the number of people who get impacted increases exponentially. Even those booking a package tour will have to be paying 20% extra that the tour operator collects and gives to the government. But that's not the only impact. Any purchases on your credit card that are made in dollars or in a foreign currency gets taxed, even if you're sitting in India. So things like magazine subscriptions, OTT subscriptions, something you buy on an app or a website in foreign currency is likely to get taxed too. You can claim all of this from the IT department at the end of the financial year. You can file for a refund, but that means extra paperwork and, of course, more expenses for you immediately. Needless to say, people are furious, at least on social media. This topic has been trending all day. People have been asking whether this is a form of tax terrorism. So is this a good intention gone wrong, or a case of throwing out the baby with the bathwater? To speak more on this, I'm joined today by Lloyd Matthias, business strategist and investor. Ashwini Kakkar, managing partner of Indventure, is with me on the show. Ajay Roti, CEO Tax Compass, is speaking with us, as is Ankit Jain, partner, Ved Jain and Associates. Welcome to all of you, and thank you so much for speaking with us on the show. Mr. Ajay, let me come to you first on your view. You have been very, very I think, no holds barred in your comments, at least on social media, where you've said this is a complete disaster. Why do you think so? Why should crooks who evade taxes be allowed to?
Yeah, so I think I'll just pick it up from where you left, and I think you summed it up well to say that is this the case of throwing the baby with the bathwater? I think this is a well-intentioned move. I've had no qualms admitting that. I see no reason why somebody who's evading tax or remitting money should be let go. But that doesn't mean you inconvenience a much larger population of holding back 20%. And in my view, if this has to be done, then there is a more reasonable percentage that could have been done. We have similar situations, similar instances. For example, there is a very small 0.1% TDS that applies on real estate transactions because the government in its wisdom believed that there could be certain things happening in cash and therefore they needed to get data. And if the reason here is to collect data of the evaders and transactions, therefore to expand the tax net, then it could have been at a much lower rate than 20%, because 20% is almost as good as a tax rate in most cases. It's the tax rate that people earning about 12 lakh rupees start paying. Therefore, the rate is something that I have a larger problem with, and not really the concept of having a TCS which will bring this transaction. Because please remember that TCS on LRS has been in place from October 2020, and it's been at 5%. And that 5 is going up to 20 from July 1, and the credit card transactions are coming in. If I were to just put finger on one of the problems or the biggest problem that I have with this, it's really the rate and not the concept or the principle behind this legislation.
5% to 20% is a massive jump, including credit card payments is a massive jump. Ashwini Kakkar, great to speak to you after a very long time and to have you on the show. What is this going to do to the tourism industry? Because as we understand from the FAQs, which frankly have confused a little more than they should, this also applies to travel and tour packages, which a lot of people prefer to do.
Absolutely. So there's a lot of issues here. I think in 2000, when the law was actually made to exclude credit cards, I think the intention was that the country was moving in the right direction and moving towards full convertibility. And that has been completely negated by this. I think this is actually quite a retrograde step, in my opinion. And like you said, a baby with the bathwater, I would say it's using a cannon to kill a fly. So I think this is a bit of a dicey situation because the travel industry will be completely knocked out with this whole kind of new TCS that is being proposed. Remember that the credit card is the last resource that a person has when he's traveling in a strange country and nothing else works. Maybe, for example, Sweden. They do not accept cash anymore. Nobody accepts cash in Sweden. So a poor customer, he gets trapped. He has, issues, and this is a completely retrograde step, according to me, because what will happen is that, who will keep track of this? The complexity of everything will increase. I mean, I, as an individual, have to keep track of every cup of coffee that or every little medicine that I have bought in an international location with my credit card or something like that. And equally, the banks will have a tough time. The credit card companies will have a tough time of tracking everything. I mean, all this could have been done very easily by the government by just using artificial intelligence on the normal credit card payments. I think the government has the entire data on credit card payments, whether a person is spending on a cycle or a car or anything anywhere in the world. That data is already available with the government. So why, do this and cause immense grief to the common man? The big guys kind of get away with murder. I don't mind that. But, and the government has means to track everybody. But at least, please do not...
They're not supposed to, though, Ashwini Kakkar. They're not supposed to. There is still something like privacy in this country. I know there are a lot of reports that the government can track everything. They're not supposed to. But either way, it seems to be more than tracking. Lloyd Matthias, the thought behind it seems to be that these elite super rich people are the ones who travel abroad and they deserve to pay this tax. So what is 20% for them? But is that really the case in this day and age? Look at the aspirational middle class Indian. They save up and they go abroad. More and more Indians are traveling abroad. It isn't some, very high net worth individual group of special people only who travel abroad. This is going to impact everyone.
Absolutely, Tamanna. And just want to say that the number you talked about, 1.8 crore Indians that traveled abroad, I think it has to be seen contextually. This 1.8 also includes people who travel abroad for employment. Understand that there's a large quantity of them, workers going to the Middle East and to some parts of Southeast Asia. This also includes students going for education, and this also includes work-related travel. So the best estimates is that pure leisure travelers are about a third of the number. Now, for this very small quantity of people, I think putting this tax is hugely retro. Right? At one level, the government talks about trying to work towards making the rupee a reserve currency. Recently, there was a lot of noise about the fact that NPCI and UPI Pay was now available in Singapore, and over time, India wants to increase the range. I think when things are moving in the right direction on certain levels, this is a huge backward step. Right? And I agree with Ashwini to that extent that except for discouraging people to travel or making things difficult, I think the actual financial motive is completely redundant. To my mind, what is the incremental revenue that the government will accrue by this move will be very marginal, right? And for that, you're actually putting a whole section of the population through this, I think speaks very badly. For a lot of things, this government has moved positively in the right direction, but this, to my mind, is a hugely backward step. And I'd say this on two counts. I think one, like I said, is that the actual revenue target that can accrue from this is very, very minimal. And two, this is actually making the whole tax regime very cumbersome, right? When we're talking of things getting simplified, being able to file our taxes online, making the whole process completely transparent, minimizing any kind of bureaucratic interface, here we're going leapfrogging into one more area, which was much, which could have done without. And I think that really doesn't speak well for the government at all, and really is to no one's benefit in my view.
There is also so much confusion. I think the way this has been done is a bit surreptitious, to be honest. There is one sort of circular which has been put out, no explanation, a couple of FAQs that have been put out. Ved, Jain, what are we understanding? Because I'm hearing conflicting sort of claims. So one set of people saying that credit card usage in dollar for subscriptions, etc., will not attract tax. Is there clarity on that? I also want to understand that suppose you're using your international credit card abroad, does that mean a credit card issued by any company that is used internationally or specific kinds of credit card? Is there any clarity on all of this?
Yeah, so the omission that the change that has been brought up in this has specifically now said that any credit card transactions which were foreign currency transactions which have been incurred through a credit card which are traveling outside have now been brought under LRS. But generally speaking, as per the regulations of RBI, all foreign currency payments which an individual makes are covered in the limit of Liberelized Remittance Scheme, or the LRS, and with effect from 1st July 2023, all of them will attract a TCS of 20% without any threshold. So as of now, all payments which made through credit card which are in the foreign currency would attract TCS. If we say that only travel payments would attract TCS, it is going to be very difficult for a bank to figure out what is a payment or a credit card company to figure out what is a travel payment and what is not. A bank would only consider the total amount of payments made in foreign currency and in all likelihood charge a 20% TCS in all the transactions, unless RBI specifically clarifies that only the specific transactions are covered and not the rest of them.
So what does that mean in simple language, Ankit? If I use my credit card to buy a subscription of something XYZ and I'm charged in dollars and it's a credit card issued by an Indian bank, do I pay this 20% TCS or not?
So irrespective of the fact that whosoever has issued the credit card, an Indian person would have to make the payment in INR or to a bank or to a local bank itself. It can be any of the local banks or the foreign banks, but the payment would have to be made in India. And as soon as the payment is going to be made to the bank is an authorized dealer, he would be required to charge TCS of 20% on those transactions. The transaction, whether it is, subscription of ChatGPT or for any foreign airline booking or for, as you said, OTT platforms or any of these transactions, all of these, in my opinion, will start attracting TCS from 1st July 2023, practically increasing the cost for the common man.
And one more practical question, FAQ. If viewers watching this have questions for the panel and for Ankit, please write into us, tweet to us, and we'll have some of those questions for Ankit as well. But practical questions: how am I going to keep track of this? If I want to claim all of this at the end of the year, how am I going to keep track of this? Through my credit card bills? Is it only credit card bills? If I go to Mr. Kakkar and say that here's, 5 lakh rupees, I want to book a holiday to whatever destination, do I pay it to him as well?
Not only that, Tmanna, there's a whole slew of complexity. For example, if the credit card company charges me 20% on the foreign dollar payment, let's say, then suppose I carry that payment forward, and I don't, will I have to pay the interest charges on the tax?
Yes. Yes, I think you will. I think you will. I don't think any credit card company is going to spare you those high interest rates. Let Ved answer that question. Ved, we have a bit of FAQs here as well. Please answer those questions.
There's lots of...
Yeah, so
lots of,
in case, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so
go ahead.
in case if any tax is required, that's So in case any tax is required, tax is levied, the credit card won't have to pay that tax, irrespective of the fact that whether or not they're able to recover that money from the credit card holder or not. The credit card company would have to pay, the bank would have to pay. Interest, of course, it is going to be levied on the whole amount and it is going to be charged. And today, the fact that amount which is deducted as tax is collected as tax, it will get accumulated during the whole year. Bank will issue you a certificate every quarter based on the amount that they have collected and issue you. And while filing your return in your form 26AS, you will get a summary of all the tax which has been collected by banks on these transactions. And while filing your return, you will have to claim them and get a refund. For businessmen, for people who have to pay advance tax, this is not going to be a problem in most of the cases, which the high net worth individuals, because they usually have tax liabilities from many sources, and in that case, it does not really impact them because they, as it does, have to pay an advance tax. Instead of that, now TCS would be there. But for salaried employees for whom all the tax is deducted by their employer, this would be a big amount. This would be a significant amount which they will not be able to adjust with their TDS from the employer, and they would just have to claim it from their, at the time of filing of their tax return, which happens in the next year. So for a summer holiday, somebody who's taken in the month of June or May or June, any tax which is collected now, he will only be able to get the refund of that by maybe earliest May or June of next year, not before that. So this is going to become a big challenge for at least for salaried taxpayers.
That is so, it really sounds unfair and really sounds complex. Ajay Roti, I want to come to you. Yes, because they're saying that there's an exception for business travelers. I want to understand if an employee is traveling on business, they have their company credit card, but they want to have a cup of coffee, okay, on their own. Who pays for it? Who will swipe it? You keep the bill, you'll get the money after a year. It's I don't know, it's sounding ridiculous. Maybe one more set of FAQs is needed.
No, I think the FAQ that's issued today creates more problems on that front. I'll tell you the reason. Normally you would have come to the same conclusion that you just did, which is if you're traveling on business, you would have that 20%. What the FAQ today says, interestingly, is that it says that if it is for business purposes and it's a company expense, the banks will not do, TCS on that. But how will a bank know? If I'm swiping a card in the US and if I'm traveling, if I'm paying for the hotel, how does the bank sitting here, which is generating my credit card statement, know whether it's a vacation or a foreign travel? Then there will be a mechanism in which the bank will seek data you need to provide. Just adds layers of complexity, layers of administrative hassle. People have to keep track of the credit, like we mentioned. And the banks are not going to take responsibility for this. So, and rightfully so. How will they know what it is? And the circular actually says the banks have to verify the bona fide of this transaction, whether it is business or not. And how will they ever do that? Whether it is a business expense, like you asked, if it's a cup of tea with the client or if it's a cup of tea that you had. And if it is not, then the 20% is borne by the employee. Then will the company then start reimbursing with that gross up? There are too many issues that come with this. And I don't think, the FAQ issue today clarifies most of these things, does push some of the things more on the administrative inconvenience side. Also, the FAQ is not even clear. It doesn't have a head or tail as to who's issued it, whether it's by the CBDT, applies for this. It's just shared by the finance ministry on the handle.
Exactly. It's on a Twitter handle. That cup of coffee is fine. What about that extra cookie I ate? I don't know. It's becoming a bit ridiculous. Yes, Ashwini Kakkar wanted to come in.
More than that, just spare a thought for the 500,000 travel agents in this country who are just coming out of COVID and trying desperately to survive. And now suddenly you hit them with this. And they employ millions of employees, across the whole country. Their business is going to be shot to bits. So that is one aspect of the thing. And the complexity, just the sheer complexity is unbelievable. I mean, look at it. They've taken medicines out of this, medical bills out of this. Now, if I fall ill in a strange country or whatever, I need some medicines, I pay for those medicines, that will get excluded. But if the doctor prescribes that you have, 2 glasses of milk or something or whatever, because it will keep your acidity down or do something or whatever, I really don't know how all this is going to come into play and how it's all going to get implemented and how the credit card companies, which normally never give you, exact details of the transaction. It just says some strange XYZ company has built you this for in this location. Finished. So I mean, there's a lot of ifs and buts. And really speaking, like I said, it's using a cannon to kill a fly.
Okay, using a cannon to kill a fly. Lloyd, Matthias, after all the sort of response coming in so far, do you think that they'll have to rethink this, or it's wise to rethink this? I mean, another thing that's being pointed out is this is a government that said they want to make taxation simple. They want to remove the stress out of taxation. They claim that they will make it faceless. But this is turning into a scare for tax, a bureaucratic, red tape-filled nightmare.
Absolutely. I think before I get to answer that, Tmanna, I just want to say that one unintended consequence of this is a reversal to what people did a couple of decades ago before this law was passed, which is getting back to the cash economy. That when you plan your foreign travel, now you'll be scouting around to pack in those little euros or dollars so that you don't get these transactions onto your credit card. I suspect business travelers will kind of do something equivalent with their foreign counterparts. Now, this is not to say that Indians are natural cheats, but you're actually forcing people to try and kind of escape tax, which is not a good thing. And therefore, it works completely counter to this government's objective of trying to clean up the tax system and make things more transparent and easy. And on that context, therefore, I think sooner than later, the government should reconsider this because this is completely retro. It's not a win-win. It's not going to be an incremental source of revenue. It's about to kill, the travel agency business or at least reduce that dramatically. And it's needlessly putting a hurdle into what Indians are wanting to do. If a small percentage of Indians wants to go abroad for a little holiday, and not everyone who's going abroad is super rich. A lot of people just go to neighborhood countries just for a small break. So I think
people save for months. Honestly, what are we talking about? People save for months. They book air tickets months in advance. They go to people like Mr. Kakkar and find great package tours. They get friends and family together to make the cost better. We love traveling. Why penalize people as if it's some big sin? I want to just understand, though, on this point, because I've heard divergent views, the point that Lloyd made. Ankit Jain, as far as I understand, even if you go to one of those old school money exchange guys, and obviously I'm not talking about anything shady, but if you go there and you say that here are my rupees, I want to buy dollars, won't you pay the 20% TCS there as well?
Yeah, it will. So even in that case, TCS will become applicable. So if you are going for a personal tour or personal visit, then you are allowed a basic travel quota, BTQ, which is popularly known of $10,000, if I'm correct, on cash to take outside India for your expenses. That quota is also forms part of LRS. So even that will attract the 20% TCS. Even previously, in case somebody was buying large amount of currency during the year from a authorized dealer who was giving you the money exchanger who was giving you the cash, this was still applicable, but the threshold was 7 lakh rupees. Now there is zero threshold. That means even if somebody takes $10 rupees, then at least $2 more worth of money the authorized dealer would be collecting just to deposit as TCS on behalf of the person who's traveling. And this is going to be a significant challenge for the authorized dealers, because each and every transaction will now attract TCS, which will, as already been pointed by my fellow panelists, going to increase the cost for all people who are going to travel.
Okay. Ajay, your take on this? There is really no escape unless you start doing shady things, which obviously nobody wants to.
Yes, there's no escape at all. Debit cards, forex cards, etc. have always been liable to TCS. We have to remember there are two separate clauses which are liable to TCS now. One is the LRS and the other is the foreign travel that you do. And the foreign travel clause is for everything, in whatever manner you spend. And LRS, TCS, like Ankit said, will come on whether you go and buy it over the counter with a forex dealer, wherever. So if companies today want to move into giving travel advances, they're creating other issues, maybe getting out. The thing that I've been hearing from my clients in the last 2 days have been more on this business travel. How do they do that? There are some corporate expenses which are being done through corporate credit cards, especially for startups which wanted to subscribe for online things. You can't do a payment, you can't do a bank transfer because they have to be paid immediately, and there's a recurring payment that has to happen. So there's a bit of impact on the business as well, and that too for the new age. Now you were subscribing for certain, including Amazon services, or you like ChatGPT. Somebody said that at the beginning. These are things which you can't pay by a traditional NEFT, Swift payment, etc., because nobody waits for that. The way it happens is to go and give your credit card, validate it, and then move on. So even companies were using personal credit cards to make these payments, and you could get stuck in a lot of these issues even for those cases.
Okay, so it's sounding like a bit of a nightmare with no real escape. Yes, Mr. Kakkar.
So, one of the key issues that's coming out of this is that, the government will have to keep track of everything. All the taxes that we pay, on this count, the government will have to account for them. And at the end of the year, in any case, the government will have to pay us back one way or the other. Either from the taxes that we have paid, it will get deducted, or that the government will physically have to pay that money back. So I think it's a net zero-sum game for the government. Yes.
No, they build up a working capital. They have to pay you back after a year.
Yes, but if their intention is honest, they still have to pay back everything. And are they doing it to gain interest on that small amount from people? I mean, please, this is ridiculous. How can the government live on the interest that it makes for the 1 year on the money that they charge people in advance and then pay it back to them later? I mean,
okay.
I really feel...
Ajay wants to come in. Ajay wants to come in on that theory. We're trying to figure out, more confusing than the FAQs is, why would you do this? Why would you do this, and what are you getting out of it? Yes.
I completely agree with Ashwini here. Because, what are we talking? We are talking of $25 billion. That's the last LRS remittance that has happened. And we are talking of 20% of that, which is $5 billion. And the interest saving on that 6%, really, it's a piddly sum for the government, given the finances and given where we are. I don't think the government will be doing this for working capital or anything like that, or keeping that, $5 billion a year. What are we talking? Sure. So I don't think it is that. I think the government has been giving different reasons. When in 2020 the TCS on LRS was introduced, the finance bill said it is to widen the tax net. If you see today's FAQ, they actually say we have brought this in because people were using the credit card limits to exceed the 250,000 LRS limit. And they specifically state in the FAQ that we are aware of cases where the banks have given a higher limit on credit cards and therefore we are wanting to do this. Now, I don't know if the government is wanting to do it because of tax and the LRS is a consequence, or because they want to plug the LRS and tax is a consequence. There are, that's not clear. It's a conflicting view there on both sides. So I really, at least I can't make out why the government is doing this as a primary reason, whether it is tax or whether it is really to plug the forex flow that's happening.
On the show, I invite whoever wants to come in and explain this on behalf of Ministry of Finance, RBI, CBDT, please welcome. Welcome to explain why you have done this and what the reason was, and is it worth all the inconvenience? Yes, Mr. Kakkar wants to come in. Yes.
Yeah, Tmanna, I am saying that, why would the government, for example, want to do this when they have all the credit card data of every single spend that anybody has made in their entire life? I mean, if it's a $10 spend, the government knows that this $10 was spent on this. And if there is somebody who's misusing the system, you know exactly who's misusing the system and you can catch him. You can do everything. The entire credit card company's data is available to the government. There is no possibility of anybody overriding that or, hiding some stuff, especially when they've spent on a credit card or a mechanism like that.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know. Again, you've said this before. I don't know if the government, should be going into everyone's credit card records and checking stuff. There are some rules and invasion of privacy, etc. Lloyd, Matthias, how do you think this is going to end? Is it actually going to stop people from spending as much?
I think people's habits...
Will we find a jugaad for this as well?
I think the answer is somewhere in between. I think some part of it is jugaad. Like I said, we can't talk about things shady, but I guess a lot of people will find via media of how to avoid this tax. I think to the other extent, it'll work in a sense as a detriment to some extent in foreign travel. I think lastly, it just kind of makes the whole tax system more compliance heavy. It's really going to become very problematic for the average person on the street. And I think that works completely counter to the grain of what the government has done so far. I sincerely believe that there will be a rethink on this sooner than later. I think it's the first time that something that completely defies logic and has no real economic benefit is coming into play.
Okay.
And there is no other country in the world where this kind of thing works.
Yes. Sorry. Yes? Yes, Mr. Kakkar.
There is no other country in the world where this kind of nonsensical scheme or, something of this kind has been promulgated by any government. Forget about successfully, but not even unsuccessfully, I guess.
Okay. There are urges always for a re-look. Everyone has said that please re-look at it. I'm being told Ved Jain and Associates Ankit Jain wants to come in with a point. Yes, Ankit.
Yeah, so the solution, I just heard the number that $25 billion is the annual LRS that is processed from India, and $5 billion is the collection. And even if I say that LRS reduces $3 billion, this is money which is coming out from the Indian taxpayers' pocket. It is a huge amount of money that is going to be, and the biggest chunk is going to be from the middle class. It's going to be the middle class. To catch those high net worth individuals who are running away with some amount of money from tax, the brunt is going to be faced with for the middle class. Imagine, any travel agent, a small tour will cost at least 2.5 lakh rupees, 3 lakh rupees. Adding another 50,000, 60,000, which is getting stuck just in some. Any person who is working in a corporate, in a good job, anything, he's earning, I will not say very high income, maybe 12 to 15 lakhs of income, probably plans one trip at any point of time. Now for him, this additional cost of 50,000, 60,000 rupees on a trip, probably nearby, any place nearby, even is going to be very, very, very prohibitive. In my opinion, it is the government should definitely relook at this provision, and they should try. There are two things that they can focus on. One, the basic threshold, that without any threshold you're applying 20% flat on everything. I think that's somewhat incorrect and it should not be. Probably a threshold of maybe 7 lakh, 10 lakhs, even 5 lakh rupees, I would say is a good enough threshold to at least exempt some people from this applicability of this tax. And the tax rate of 20%, that's too high. The effective tax rate for a normal individual is 32% itself, out of which 20% is a tax. If that means that the government is presuming that all foreign expenditure is being made through income which is not declared, that's very unlikely, and I don't see that this is the reason that,
there's some Richie Rich,
so in my opinion, the tax rate should be also brought down.
Richie Rich tax evaders, Richie Rich criminal tax evaders who are doing all of that. Maybe there are a few. Go after them. Go after them. Don't harass everyone. Yes, last comments before I close the discussion, Mr. Roti.
Yes, please go. Yes, go after them.
Yeah, I think this needs a bit of a relook for sure. Because like I said at the beginning, the intention is right, but implementation is going to be a nightmare. And the rate is something that definitely needs a relook, even if the provision doesn't. It definitely needs a relook at the rate at least. The whole provision, I think, is to be reconsidered. But if not that, at least the rate.
I'm seeing a lot of comments of people saying, oh, this is just going to hit the elite. Why does everyone have to be so worried about it? Well, the fact is it's not just going to hit the elite. And, wanting to travel abroad for whatever reason is not something just the elite do. Let people do it. There is a whole industry around it. And maybe don't come down so hard in a blanket rule which will impact everyone. So a lot of food for thought there. Thank you to all of you for joining us on the lead story this evening. We'll take a very short break.